This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Josh Strickland, here on this Thursday edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast. Of course, if you like the show, rate us, review us, and of course, subscribe to the show if you want to hear my voice or you want to hear Chris's voice every other day. We have pretty much a show every day, and it's a good time. We never run out of sports topics, you know. I definitely didn't struggle on the Sunday show trying to find a sports topic, okay? That never happens, all right? That's ludicrous, all right? We always have topics to talk about. Anyways, we have a great show for you today. I have a great show for you today. We're going to talk Wilder versus Fury, part 3. NFL CBA, more talks about that. Steph Curry returning. Is it a good idea? Then we have Zion Williamson versus LeBron James, the first meeting. Then we'll talk about the Olympics potentially getting canceled, and then we'll move on to what is the future for the XFL? What does it look like? So let's go ahead and start off with Wilder versus Fury. So, of course, you had the big Wilder versus Fury fight this past weekend on Saturday night, and I watched it the day after. I watched a replay of it, and you could tell during the fight, and I mentioned this on the Sunday show, you could tell during the fight that Wilder was kind of in over his head. Fury was just dominating him the entire night, the entire fight. It went 7 rounds, got called off on this in the 7th round, and I thought it should have been called off around like the 5th round. You could tell Wilder was discombobulated and off balance all throughout the 3rd round, and then the 5th round, he got knocked down a couple times, and he was just tripping all over the ring and stuff like that. So you could clearly tell that it was probably over for Wilder there. Somehow he survived until the 7th round, of course, but then his trainers threw in the towel. So there was a lot of talk about whether or not he would exercise his rematch clause, because he kind of got beat down like big time. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about this fight. It was all Tyson Fury all the time in this fight. Wilder he had a strong 2nd round, I guess you could say. Some people are claiming that he won the 2nd round, but other than that, it was complete and utter domination by Tyson Fury. So people were wondering if he would exercise that rematch clause, because you could fight for a 3rd time. They tied the 1st time. Fury won the 2nd time. Wilder could win the 3rd time and regain all of his credibility and all of his prestige and all that back. But I don't really see how it could be a different outcome, because Tyson Fury was just that much better. But Deontay Wilder is exercising his rematch clause for a 3rd fight against Tyson Fury. He announced that on Monday, and it's officially happening. It's going to happen over the summer, so it's not as long as a wait as between the first match and the 2nd fight. So the 3rd fight's coming up. It's going to be a big deal. It's going to be hyped up big time by all the major networks, and I will probably watch it, because like I mentioned in my recap, is that I really enjoyed watching the fight, even if it was a complete domination, and I really enjoyed watching it. So I will watch the third match, and then I will be anticipating the winner to face Anthony Joshua, and that's going to be a great match as well, a great fight as well. I keep saying match because I'm used to watching wrestling, but it will be a great fight as well. Now, Wilder has been interviewed, and he's made some choice claims here in the past couple of days. So he was upset with the decision of his assistant trainer, Mark Breland, who threw in the towel for Wilder after getting knocked down twice. He removed Breland from his corner for the future fight. So I'm going to redact this. So he said he will reevaluate it in May. So in May, he'll see if his trainer gets to stay on in his corner or not. But my thing is, he should stay on. He seemed like you were getting beat down, man. Like, this guy pretty much saved you from having like long-term brain damage or long-term anything. Like, he's kind of saved you from, like, you had blood spewing out of your head and stuff like that. So I don't. Why would you remove the guy who did his job correctly and went and saved you? Is beyond me. But we'll see if he does that. He also blamed his weakened legs. That was caused by his walkout outfit. If you didn't see, he had a very outrageous outfit. It was all black. It had like rhinestones or gemstones or something like that, and it also had LED lights. He said he wore this steel costume in honor of Black History Month. Didn't really give any more information other than that. He just kind of said it was in honor of Black History Month. Nobody really knows what it was referring to, like what was the reference of it or anything like that. But apparently it weighed more than 40 pounds. So he blamed this. He said walking to the ring in this 40-pound costume made his legs weak and made him not as ready as he would be for this fight as he usually would be for a fight. And he's blaming this heavy suit of armor that he put on. He said this: a lot of people saw I wasn't the same Deontay Wilder in there, and they're correct. It's my own fault. My uniform I wore was very heavy for me. I had no legs from the first round on, which you could tell he was a little wobbly from the third round on, which is, like I said, the third round was when I thought, oh, this is not good. Like, this is not going to be a close match fight at all. Because third round, you could tell his legs were wobbly. He was struggling to kind of stay up, and the announcers were saying that it was because Tyson Fury was putting his weight, his 270 plus pounds, leaning on him at all times, pretty much anytime they locked up. And I mean, that could also be a factor in it. But the 40 pounds probably didn't help either. But my thing is, you're a professional athlete. You are paid to be an athlete. How is 40 pounds that much of a burden? Now, I haven't played sports. I work out at a decent regularity, and the bar by itself is 40 pounds, 45 pounds. When I go to like squat or do anything like that, if I just do the bar itself, it feels like nothing. Now, obviously, it's on his chest and it's on his head and stuff like that. And yeah, but if you're a professional athlete, which I've seen pictures of his legs are kind of small compared to the rest of his body. He can kind of skip leg day a couple times. But you're a professional athlete, you should be able to handle 40, 45 pounds of weight. It depends how long you had that costume on. I don't know. But he said, my main focus was to survive with my legs and on the principles I know and normally think of. I couldn't follow up with the game plan because of my legs. I couldn't do anything. So apparently he never tested walking around in this costume before strapping on the hooded garb, equipped with red LED lights for his eyes and stuff like that. And yeah, so that's what he's going for. It makes no sense. Everybody is calling him out on it, saying this is dumb. You're the reason you wore that. Nobody forced you to wear that. Meanwhile, Tyson Fury is being carried to the ring, literally like a king. And you know, he didn't have any issues with his legs because you know why. He got carried to the ring. He also mentioned that he was dismayed by the veteran referee Kenny Bayless' reluctance to confront Tyson Fury over punches that Wilder said struck him in the back of the head and neck, which I actually know what he's talking about. I saw some punches that did hit him in the back of the head. It did hit him in the back of the neck. It was most of the time when they kind of grappled a little bit. Wilder went on to say that the Bayless kind of told him before the fight in the locker room that, hey, don't do this, don't hit Fury in the back of the head or anything like that, or I will deduct points and I will disqualify you. So Wilder was kind of hinting at that, like, he was told this, but Fury could do it without being punished or anything like that. But Fury got a point deducted from him in the 5th round, which of course didn't matter because both men were going for knockouts, but Fury got a point deducted in the 5th round. So that kind of, I mean, Wilder said that he thought that he should have got points deducted earlier and that the ref was just kind of making saving face or something like that. Just none of these excuses really hold weight, and it's going to be interesting to see Tyson Fury's reaction to all of this stuff. And it will definitely be used as ammo during the promo tour of the 3rd fight, which we will all probably watch. But yeah, Wilder Fury 3, I'm excited for it. This is actually the first time I will be excited for a boxing match. So yeah, I'm excited for it. So when we return, the NFL Players Association made their decision on their CBA, or at least the reps made the decision on the new CBA when we return.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So we talked about this on Tuesday. I went more in depth on the CBA on Tuesday, how it's bringing up, it's adding a 17th game to the regular season. It's adding 2 teams into the playoffs, so it's 7 teams on for each conference, and or each league. My bad. It's conference. Each conference, and only the number 1 seed would get a bye. And then there was some extra stuff like there's more benefits for retired players. There's more benefits for current players. There'll be more roster spots and stuff like that. And yeah, so there's a lot of speculation about whether or not the Players Association will pass this, which they have officially not passed it yet. So the way it goes, the way the CBAs work, it goes through the owners. The owners vote on it. After these owners vote on it, it goes down to the NFLPA reps. So each team sends a representative. So there's 32 reps, and they vote on it. And if there's a majority for it or against it or whatever, then it'll move on. If there's a majority for it, then it'll move on to the entirety, every single player in the NFL. So that's where we are right now. We're waiting on every player in the NFL to make a vote on this. And we've heard different things from some people claiming that this is not a good deal. You have players voting no on it and stuff like that. So, for instance, J.J. Watt said, that's a no for me, dog, pretty much. Russell Wilson recently said the NBA and MLB are doing it right. Players come first. All NFL players deserve the same. We should not rush the next 10 years for today's satisfaction. I vote no. Now, there's random capitalization in there, which is kind of weird. But it's clear that... And there's news that Aaron Rodgers was very against it as well. He was a huge objector of this new CBA. It's clear that there are players that don't agree with the CBA. However, we don't really know why. None of these players have really mentioned why they don't like it, and it's kind of, Pat McAfee made a great observation on this. 10 years ago, when they passed this new CBA, the Players Association kind of got shafted And that's because the owners got in front of it with a PR. The owners and the NFL only released information that made the players look bad for not taking it, and that's basically what's happening right now. Right now, you get this stream of information about all this great stuff that the new CBA will cause, and for instance, like better benefits for retired players, like full-on medical care, like they can go to a hospital, get a free physical, free checkup, and stuff like that. Higher pensions for retired players. Higher pay for lower tier players. So overall pay increase for practice squad and like fringe players on the roster. Stuff like that. So you see all that, and the NFL will release that, and the owners will release that. Like, for instance, there is a form, there is a sheet filled out that has all of that stuff, like pretty much most of that stuff laid out. You see that, and you're like, oh, that's pretty good. Why would anybody be against that? And then you see all these star players be against it, and now the casual fan is just sitting here and it's just like, well, I mean, they're trying to do all this great stuff. Why did the players not like it? And it kind of turns the public against the players and for the billionaire owners. And at the end of the day, this is billionaires versus millionaires. The casual person should not care that much. The new CBA will definitely help all the lower players on the totem pole. It doesn't help the star players. That's why you see a lot of star players kind of against it. The 17th game, people are against because what about the contracts now? How do the contracts that are made for 16 games, how does that affect the 17th game? Which I think the original deal was like you get paid up to like $100,000 or something like that for the 17th game, which to some lower guys who get paid about like $50,000 or something like that, that's fantastic. That's awesome. That's great. Practice squad guys, they love that. Star players, they're getting paid millions of dollars per game. They're like, that's nothing. I don't want that. So it is definitely kind of a PR battle at this moment in time where the NFL and the owners are kind of winning at the moment because everyone sees these. Everybody sees the 17th game. And the only thing people are talking about are the 17th regular season game and the extra playoff games. That's the only thing. That's the only thing people are talking about at this moment in time. No one cares about the pensions. Nobody cares about the medical stuff. Everyone's only talking about the 17th game, and they're talking about the extra playoff games. So everybody's talking about, we love football. We love more football. So why would you not like a 17th game? The NFL playoffs could use a change. So why would we not change the NFL playoffs? It makes the regular season more enjoyable. Well, here's the thing. The 17th game is literally just for TV revenue, which I understand the star players will not touch any of that TV revenue. The owners will touch all of that TV revenue. The NFL, the league itself, will touch all that TV revenue. The extra playoff game, the 2 extra playoff games will also bring in more TV revenue. This is all TV deals. So basically what the star players are looking at, they're looking at, yeah, all that stuff is great, but in the long run, we're getting shafted. And that's kind of what they're looking at. That's what Russell Wilson's looking at. That's what J.J. Watt's been looking at. That was what Aaron Rodgers is looking at. They're saying overall, in the long term, in the long scheme of things, we're getting screwed here. Because the owners are going to make all this money from the TV deals, from the new advertisements and stuff like that, while we get paid basically the same, and we have to play 1 or 2 more games a year. I also just not a fan of the 17th game. I mentioned this before. It makes records look weird. Someone posted a record, like there's a possibility for someone to go 1-16. That's just weird. I don't like that. 2-15, 3-14. Like these are just weird. No one can go 8-8 anymore if there is a 17th game. No one can go 7-9 and be on their 7-9 BS. You know, the Rams can't go 7-9 ever again. Jeff Fisher can never go 7-9 ever again. And that is concerning to me. I mean, it means nothing ultimately, but it's concerning to me for meme purposes. My memes are getting ruined because I can't make fun of the Cowboys for going 8-8 anymore. The playoff game, I'm whatever on that. I'd rather them not add a playoff game, but they're going to add a 17th game. They're eventually going to add an 18th game, because when do we stop? That is the real question I really got to ask here. When is it enough? How many games is enough? Because for the owners, it doesn't matter. To them, it does not matter. You could play 25 games in a season, and the owners will not care because they get more money because of TV revenue. So how many games is too much? I thought 16 was great. I think 16 is a fair number. 17, I just don't like the odd. The odd factor there is just an odd number. 18, you bring it back to even, but then teams are playing 20-plus games in a year, which I think they already... No, they don't. They don't already do. But, like, teams will be playing 20-plus games a year. I think right now the most you can play is 19. Yeah, 19 games. If you make it 17, that means the max you can play is 21 or 20. Or, yeah, it's 21. You can play 21. You're playing 20-plus games. Do you know how much that wears down on the bodies of these players? And people are wondering why they're against this so much. Now, obviously, for the players, it's also a cash grab, especially for these star players. They want to get paid more and stuff like that. So, obviously, it's a cash grab no matter what. But I'm going to be on the side of the players more than I'm going to be on the side of the billionaires who are not putting their bodies on the line. Now, when we return, we'll be talking about another player who's kind of putting his body on the line for probably no reason. When we come back...
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
We have all the CBA talk in the NFL, talking about the players getting their rights and the players having no reason to play an extra game in a season and no reason to put their bodies on the line for stuff like that. And that brings up a good point for basketball as well. As you may have heard, Steph Curry is returning to the NBA this Sunday. He was out with a hand injury, and he was out with some leg stuff as well. So he is coming back this Sunday to play for the Warriors, the Golden State Warriors, who are having a stopgap year. They lost Kevin Durant. Klay Thompson tore his ACL in the playoffs last year, and then Steph Curry got injured earlier this year. So it was pretty much just like, all right, we're done. We're blowing it up. We're done here. So they are currently in line for a top draft pick, and they're looking pretty for next year because they got Andrew Wiggins, who could potentially be a good fit for the Warriors. They're getting Steph and Klay back next year, and the Warriors are going to be right back up there in the top of the West next year. Now, here's my question, though. Is it a good idea for Steph Curry to come back now? you really got to think about it. In this day and age of load management in the NBA, where Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, LeBron James, and these guys are all sitting out most of the time. Well, LeBron James is not, actually. I take that back. But Kawhi Leonard, he's sitting out a lot of games. Giannis is technically sitting out games. He's starting all of the games, but they blow people out, so he gets to load manage that way. But you got these teams that are so focused on keeping their players fresh for the playoffs, which obviously the Warriors aren't going to make the playoffs, but I'll bring that up later. But in this day and age of load management and trying to keep your players healthy, why is Steph Curry coming back at all this season? Because this season is lost. The Warriors are 12-46. They have zero chance of making the playoffs. It would be a miracle for them. I don't think they're mathematically eliminated yet, but it would take a literal miracle for them to actually make it into the playoffs at this point in time. But yeah, they're 12-46. Right now, they're just kind of hoping not to have the worst record in franchise history, which was set in like 2001, where they only got 17 wins. So it's kind of like, well, he's not coming back to make the playoffs. So why is he coming back? Why is this a thing? Well, one thing is the Warriors could see how he plays with Andrew Wiggins and start building some chemistry between the two. Because Andrew Wiggins, he is kind of known to be a bad egg. Especially, he was kind of that at Minnesota. There were some issues there with Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns and Jimmy Butler. There were some complications there. So you really want to see if he can actually play with a star like Steph Curry. You want to see they can build some chemistry. However, it kind of doesn't really matter because that dynamic will change once again once Klay Thompson comes back next year. So you're going to build up all this chemistry, have these two play together, build up a new dynamic just for Klay Thompson to come back in, and kind of you have to tweak the dynamic one more time and tweak it again. So kind of makes no sense to me. And when you put it in that perspective, another thing, it won't affect lottery pick status for the Warriors. Like I said, they are easily low three team in the league. They are bad. They're playing with a bunch of scrubs at the moment. It's scrubs and Andrew Wiggins at the moment. I mean, Kayvon Looney, he's a pretty good player as well, but right now it's just a bunch of scrubs playing for the Warriors at the moment. They traded D'Angelo Russell, and yeah, so there's really nothing going on for the Warriors right now. They are easily going to win a lottery pick, which this is kind of a weakish draft. But I mean, if the Warriors somehow got that number one pick in the draft, then we're going to hear the ultimate Death Star of the Warriors. So that was another thing I thought about. Like, so if Steph Curry comes back and he lights the NBA on fire like he usually does that mean the Warriors will lose out on their lottery pick status when they lose out on that? But it's very unlikely. Because even if Steph Curry comes in and lights the NBA on fire, I highly doubt they're going to win, 20 games in a row or something like that? I mean, it's possible, of course, but I don't think the Warriors in general are built to win 20 games in a row, even with Steph Curry. So that brings up, what is there to gain with Steph Curry playing right now? What is there to gain? So playing him is not going to affect the lottery. You're not going to make the playoffs. The chemistry with Wiggins is going to get ruined once Klay Thompson comes back. So what's the end game here? He does not need to play. That is kind of where I'm going here. I don't think Steph Curry should play. I would love him to play. I want to watch Steph Curry play. Steph Curry's an amazing player and he's fun to watch. He will light teams on fire. I can see him scoring 50 points a game in losses. Because the Golden State Warriors are done. They're done this year. It's over. Like, they don't want... They're not going to win anything. I think it's done. I think it's over for them. At least this year. Next year is a different story when you have Klay Thompson, got Andrew Wiggins, and then you have Steph Curry. But it's just hard to imagine the Warriors that's happening. But it's great for the fans. The fans are going to see Steph Curry again. They're going to have hope going into next year. Currently, the Golden State Warriors are on a 7-game losing streak, by the way. Like I said, they are 12-46. They are the worst team in the league, even behind Cleveland, even behind Minnesota, even behind Atlanta, New York, Detroit. They are 7-22 at home in that new stadium, in that new arena. They're 5-24 away. They're 2-8 in the last 10. They are 33 games back from the number 1 seed. They're like 16 back from Memphis right now. Yeah, they're 16 back from Memphis. So there is a chance that they could win the rest of their games and make the playoffs somehow. But very unlikely. Like I keep saying. Let's just look. They play the Lakers Thursday, and this is without Steph. Steph comes back on Sunday. They play the Suns, then they play the Wizards with Steph, then the Nuggets, then the Raptors, then the 76ers, then the Clippers. That 4-game stretch alone, holy cow, this is an insane schedule. So they play the Nuggets, Raptors, Sixers, and Clippers back to back to back to back, all within a 10-day span. Then they play the Nets. Then they play the Bucks, Raptors, Pacers in 6 days. That's insane. Wow. Then they got the Nuggets, Rockets, Spurs, Lakers, Cavaliers, Lakers, Clippers. And all that's within a 2-week span. So yeah, unless Steph Curry... Which, by the way, I don't care about anything else. If Steph Curry somehow leads this team to the playoffs, which, once again, highly doubt it, then he deserves all the MVPs for the rest of the time he's playing. You can't... Like, this schedule is insane. This is an insane schedule. I don't know why he's playing, other than the fact that he just wants to play basketball, which is fair. But, I mean, he's got... Wouldn't you rather have a completely healthy Steph, a completely healthy Klay going into next year? Oh, well. I mean, I don't make decisions here. I mean, obviously he wanted to play. Otherwise, he would not be playing. But there you go. So Steph Curry's coming back. If you want to watch him against the Wizards, you can. I'm not going to watch that, especially since it's going to be at like 12 o'clock at night, midnight. Anyways, when we return, we'll stick with the NBA. We'll talk about the first meeting between Zion and LeBron when we return.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Everyone was hyping it up. They're going to hype it up no matter what, especially when it involves these two juggernauts of players. You have Zion Williamson, LeBron James. I actually heard on the radio earlier that was like, oh, this is the first meeting of many between these two. And I'm just sitting there like, how many is it really going to be, though? The Lakers and the Pelicans have played twice already this year. So the allure of the former Lakers of Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, and Josh Hart playing the Lakers and Anthony Davis against the Pelicans, that's all kind of washed off at this point in time, as they've already played twice before. But this game, 3 times before, sorry. But this game was much more, because it was the first time that we got to see on the same court Zion Williamson versus LeBron James. You got the most hyped up rookie in the NBA since LeBron James facing LeBron James. So this was hyped up, obviously. Everybody was excited to see it. LeBron James, everybody's been hyping this up since LeBron James went to the Duke-Virginia game last year to watch Zion firsthand on an off day. So this has been hyped up to the high heavens. Everybody's talking about the Pelicans sneaking into the playoffs in the 8th seed just to play the Lakers in a 7-game series, and how that could save the NBA, save NBA ratings, and stuff like that. Well, it was a good game. It ended with the Lakers winning 118-109. LeBron did a thing. He had a season high of 40 points in this game. Zion finished with 29 points, which is pretty good, and he waged some impressive battles with Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis recorded 6 blocks in the game. Williamson finished a shot at the rim by bulldozing through Davis in the second quarter, which was impressive to watch. Anthony Davis, of course, facing his old team in the Pelicans, facing the new savior of the Pelicans that Anthony Davis once was. He once was the savior of the Pelicans. Now he's facing the new phenom, the new number 1 draft pick to join the Pelicans. I was making arguments that Anthony Davis shouldn't have left the Pelicans because it was obvious that the Pelicans were going to get that number 1 pick and draft Zion Williamson. But, stuff happens. So, Anthony Davis, 21 points, 14 rebounds, 6 blocks. Pretty good performance for him there. He had another great defensive performance. Of course, you have the former Lakers performances. Brandon Ingram led the Pelicans. He's having a really good year this year. He led the Pelicans with 34 points. He had 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. Lonzo Ball had 10 points, 8 assists, and 5 rebounds. Josh Hart only had 3 points, 3 steals, and 3 rebounds. He had a nice triple trace. This game, though, was kind of made by someone you didn't expect. Everybody's coming in here. You're talking about LeBron. You're talking about Zion. You're talking about Anthony Davis. You're talking about Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart. There's a lot of storylines going on into this game. And, of course, people are hyping it up to be the first-round matchup that makes the Lakers, quiver, I guess. I don't know. But everybody's looking at this to be a very entertaining first-round matchup, which I agree with that. But ultimately, it really depends on how the Pelicans do for the rest of the year. But Alex Caruso, which has been hyped up. He's been called the GOAT before. He's made fantastic plays. He makes incredible effort plays all the time. So he was the leader for the Lakers in plus-minus with plus 20 in his 17 minutes on the floor. I saw a play where he got a steal and then he bounced it behind through his legs to LeBron, who then dunked it, and he didn't even look for LeBron. He just knew LeBron was behind him and just bounced past between his legs to LeBron for a monster jam there. He only scored 8 points, but he had 8 assists, and he had a turnover. So Alex Caruso with plus 20 points when he is on the floor, as opposed to when he's not on the floor. He led the whole game. There was no one who had a better plus minus. Zion himself had like minus 15. LeBron had like a plus 5 or something like that. So Caruso leading the whole game it just seems like the offense of the Lakers flows much better with him as he replaced Rajon Rondo. The offense just seems to flow much better with him, and I'm really wondering why he doesn't get more playing time. Maybe they're saving him for the playoffs, which is a crazy thought to really say here in the year of our Lord 2020. But Alex Caruso came out, he really impressed me, and it looks like the Lakers offense really does perform better. He's very efficient. They perform much more efficiently with Caruso on the floor. Then you have Danny Green. Danny Green has 17 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. Markieff Morris made his Lakers debut, although he only had 4 points, and he got called 3 fouls on himself in 15 minutes. So, like I said, people are kind of hyping this up to be a potential first-round playoff matchup, which the Pelicans could still make the playoffs. This has kind of been hyped up for a while. The Pelicans were on a roll before Zion Williamson started playing, and now they're just kind of continuing that roll after the All-Star break. The Pelicans, at this moment in time, are 6-4 in the last 10, and they have a chance. They are currently 3.5 games behind the Memphis Grizzlies, who's the 8th seed. You have the Trailblazers at 9 right now, and the Pelicans at 10. They're only 3.5 games back from the Memphis Grizzlies for the 8th seed in the West, which means if they get the 8th seed, the Lakers are kind of running away with the number 1 seed being 5 games ahead right now. Of course, there's 20-plus games left to play, so anything can happen. But the Clippers are kind of looking like they're just going to rest their stars and go for the playoffs. Play seeding, play the seeding game. The Lakers, probably going to be number 1. More than likely going to be number 1. The Pelicans have also the easiest remaining schedule in the league. And they've won 8 of their last 12, which sounds much better than the 6-4 in the last 10 that I mentioned. But let's look at their schedule real quick. So they play the Cavaliers on Friday. That's a winnable game. Then they go play the Lakers in New Orleans on Sunday. It's a winnable game, but they've played the Lakers 3 separate times, lost all 3 times. Maybe it's an Anthony Davis thing, but it's not looking good for them to beat the Lakers. Then they play the Timberwolves, which is going to be a win more than likely. They play at Dallas, which that's going to be a tough game with Luka Doncic and all that. Miami Heat could be a tough game with Jimmy Butler. Then they go back to Minnesota. That's probably going to be a win. They play Sacramento, which is going to be a win. Utah Jazz would be a pretty good game. Los Angeles Clippers could be a good game. They can beat the Hawks. They can beat the Spurs. They can beat the Grizzlies. They can beat the Kings. Grizzlies again. They can beat the Knicks. They can beat the Magic. They can beat the Hawks again. They can beat the Wizards. They can beat the Spurs. They can beat the Hornets. They can beat the Suns. 76ers would be a good game. They can beat the Wizards, and they can beat the Spurs. Now, I wasn't keeping track of that, of what I just said. But from what I'm seeing here, the game against the Grizzlies on Saturday, March 21st, and then again Tuesday, March 24th against the Grizzlies, those are going to be very important games, especially for this playoff matchup, depending on how the Grizzlies do. But it does look like that the Pelicans have a fairly easy way at making the playoffs, especially since they're in the West. They're playing pretty much all the bad teams of the West, of the Western Conference, which is very impressive because the Western Conference has so many good teams. We just talked about the Warriors. The Warriors have the toughest schedule, I feel like. And now we move over to the Pelicans, who are in the same conference. They have the easiest, I feel like. They're playing like all the not good teams here. So like let's just go through it. So Lakers, of course. The Cavs are last place in the East. The Heat are 4th in the East. Hawks are close to last. Stuff like that. So easy schedule for the Pelicans. They definitely have a chance making the playoffs. And a Zion versus LeBron first round of the playoffs could be very interesting because that's where, you get to see the real dominance of players. As you can tell, LeBron takes over games all the time. in the playoffs. So we will see if that happens as we continue on through this season. So when we come back, we'll talk about the Olympics and the potentially getting canceled when we return.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
There's a lot of fear going on right now. There's a virus that is going on. I'm sure you've heard of it. I'm sure you're kind of tired of talking about it, to be honest. I'm kind of tired of talking about it. My girlfriend is terrified of it. But it is the coronavirus. The coronavirus, if you don't know, started out in China. And it's I think it's active in every single continent on Earth right now, which that's kind of a propaganda-ish headline, because the one guy in Brazil got it, so that means all of South America got it, and there's only a couple people in America that got it and stuff like that. So it's big over in China. It has infected more than 80,000 people globally. It's killed about almost 3,000 people. Majority of those people in China. The virus has also kind of moved over to South Korea, the Middle East. It's got a little bit in Europe, and Japan itself has reported 4 deaths due to the coronavirus. Now, I'm not here to cause fear or spread fear or anything like that. I'm literally only talking about this because it might affect the Olympics. Because in my opinion, these kind of viruses kind of happen every once in a while, and we'll discuss that in a little bit later. But senior member of the International Olympic Committee said Tuesday that if it proves too dangerous to hold the Olympics in Tokyo this summer because of the coronavirus outbreak, organizers are more likely to cancel it altogether than to postpone or move it. So one of the main things they mentioned is that you can't move it because TV networks, especially in America, are not going to push their football coverage out of the way for the Olympics, because no matter how much ratings the Olympics get, football will always trump the Olympics. Sucks for these Olympic sports, but that's just a plain fact. The Olympics get plenty of views and stuff like that, but football obviously is king in America, so TV networks are not going to do that. You can't really postpone it because of that. You can't move it. You could move it. You could move it to another city, but there's very few cities that can actually handle and gear up in this short amount of time to put on an Olympics. A mayoral candidate for London mentioned that London could do it, but it's that might be a political move on his part. Los Angeles could easily take over the Olympics. I feel like the entirety of Florida probably could do it as well. There are options there, but it is very difficult because you got to get an Olympic Village set up, which an Olympic Village is very difficult to set up in a very short amount of time, stuff like that. So Dick Pound, and yes, that is his name. We're just going to have a moment of silence so people can get that out. Just get it out. Yeah. Dick Pound, longest-serving member of the IOC, estimated that there is a 3-month window to decide the fate of the Tokyo Olympics, meaning a decision could be put off until late May. So Pound encourages athletes to keep training, of course, as the games are still scheduled to start July 24th. They're saying that all indications at this stage that it will be business as usual. The Olympics will not be canceled. They will not be put off. They won't do anything like that. Now, it would be a travesty if the Olympics got canceled because of this. Because I understand the worry, because if it spreads more and more people get infected, then it's definitely a huge international crisis at that point, and you just can't have the Olympics during that. I hate it because I'm looking forward to the Japanese opening ceremonies, because I feel like Japan's opening ceremonies will be freaking awesome. They ended the closing ceremonies in 2016 with the president of Japan dressed up as Mario from the Super Mario games, which was just crazy to me. That I thought that was hilarious. But Japan is into video games and into robots and stuff like that. I think the opening ceremony by itself would be super interesting for Japan. And then also you have the fact that baseball is back in. I think sumo wrestling maybe is in the Olympics this year, which will be interesting. What other countries participate in sumo wrestling? I'm sure there's more countries that... Oh, no, it was karate. Karate's in the Olympics, which that's actually going to be a lot of fun to watch as well. Karate would be fun to watch. So I was actually really pumped up for this Olympics. First off, I'm always pumped up for every Olympic because I love the random games. I love handball. Handball's a fun thing to watch. I love watching track. I love watching swimming, of course. America gets into swimming fever, gymnastics fever, stuff like that. I was interested in the baseball. I was interested in the wrestling, the weightlifting and stuff like that, the javelin, all that stuff. The Olympics are genuinely one of my favorite things about being a sports fan, because I love just turning on the TV and watching water polo at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon for no reason other than the fact that it's on. And it's the Olympics. I can cheer for random teams. I can watch beach volleyball and cheer for Brazil to beat South Korea in beach volleyball. Why? Why not? Why not? Of course, cheer for your home country. It's always fun to cheer for your home country. I mean, teams are a main reason people watch sports, because you have that emotional connection with that country or with the people that are in it. People love watching Usain Bolt. People love watching Michael Phelps. I think it'd be a travesty if the Olympics got canceled. Especially since the modern Olympics have only been canceled during wartime. 1940, it was supposed to be in Tokyo, which is in Tokyo again. I guess Tokyo has got a bad case of the cancels. But they were called off because Japan had a war going on with China, and they also had World War II going on, so they decided to call it off. A bunch of countries boycotted 1944 Olympics because of Nazi Germany. And the Rio Games in Brazil went on as scheduled in 2016 despite the Zika virus outbreak, which is very similar to what we got going on right now with the coronavirus. The Zika virus, I remember, was a huge deal back in 2016, and I remember the same story kind of came out in 2016, but eventually we did have the Olympics and the Zika virus kind of went away. So I feel like that's kind of where we're going right now. I feel like the coronavirus will probably go away after some time. Obviously, it's an epidemic at the moment, but the fact that, I hate to say this because 80,000 is a lot of people, but in the grand scheme of things, with 7 billion people on this planet, 80,000 is not that much. Now, of course, I feel terrible for all the people who died and stuff like that, but 80,000 people infected is not that much compared to the 7 billion, almost 8 billion people we have on this planet. That is not a lot. That is under 5%, maybe even less than 1%. I don't know it off the top of my head. There's less than 1%. It's nowhere near being a black plague or anything like that. I feel like a virus like this comes along every single year. You had mad cow disease, you had the bird flu, you had swine flu, stuff like that. I feel like the media just kind of drums this stuff up. Now, honestly, there is serious concern, but most of the deaths were older folks and people who didn't have that great of immune systems, or they had something going on with their immune system. So, it's hard for me to really be worried about this. Now, obviously, I say that, and I've been sick for like 2 weeks straight now, and I hate it, but we'll get over that. But I would hate for the Olympics to get canceled. It's a great event it's a great event to watch, to partake in, to go to. I've never been to the Olympics, but if they did have to move it, I feel like Los Angeles, London could do it. Atlanta even could do it. Atlanta could probably do it if you give them enough time ahead of time, which that's why I hate that they're waiting until May to make this decision, because if you try to move it, then that's not a lot of time. But they did say they're just going to cancel it if they have to cancel it. So we'll see how that turns out for the Olympics there. When we return, we'll be talking about the future of the XFL. What is the future of the XFL when we come back?
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Now, obviously, if you've been listening to this podcast for the past couple of weeks, you can tell I am a huge fan of the XFL. I was also a huge fan of the AAF, the Alliance of American Football. I was also a fan of the Arena Football League. I was also a fan of the USFL, even though I didn't grow up watching it, and it wasn't around when I was born, but I watched the 30 for 30 about it, and I was like, wow, the USFL seems cool. I love offshoot football leagues. I remember playing as the NFL Europe teams in the Madden games when NFL Europe was in the Madden games. I love these kind of niche football leagues that nobody really talks about because they're fun. They're just fun to watch. There's the NFL. That's why I like college football so much more than pro football. The NFL in itself has kind of gotten to this point where it seems like they kind of hate fun. It's a little too commercialized, too corporationalized, and I just don't get that sense of fun watching the NFL. Like, yeah, you can see the players out there and like they celebrate, and the celebrations are kind of cool and whatever. And like the football is like really good. And I really like good football, so I should enjoy the NFL. But there's just something about the NFL that I can never, ever get into, and it's mostly because it's just kind of boring. Like, yeah, you have the personalities, but when you compare the NFL to like the NBA, where the NBA, there's always something to talk about in the NBA. In the NFL, sometimes there's just like, yep. So yeah, it's week 6. Odell Beckham did this thing. So yeah, there's not a lot going on in the NFL, and that's why I like these smaller football leagues, because they kind of let the players be themselves a little bit more, and there's more interesting things going on in these leagues. For instance, the XFL, you got the player interviews on the field, which is kind of dumb. They do it a little too much, but it's interesting enough. You hear the coaches, you got the sky judge, the sky ref, and stuff like that. But I came across this article by Ross Tucker for The Athletic, who mentioned what could the future of the XFL be, especially when it pertains to the NFL, with a potential team up between the XFL and the NFL. Because, of course, every time there's a new league like this comes out, apparently their prerogative is always to team up with the NFL and become a feeder league to the NFL. That's always these leagues. That's always what these leagues want to do. And of course, these leagues want to be their own thing for at least a little bit, but at the end of the day, you're not going to survive unless you team up with the NFL. And that's the cold hard truth. The XFL does have the financial backing to last longer than the AAF, at least finish a full football season, and they are a lot more organized than the AAF. But at the end of the day, for long-term success, people do think you need to team up with the NFL. And that's where we are right now. So there are 4 things that could happen if the NFL teamed up with the XFL, and how these things could help the XFL and how they can help the NFL in the long term. So we'll start out with the obvious one. The obvious one is player development. Everybody wants the XFL to be a minor league to the NFL. Minor league football. That's basically what you want it to be. So the NFL is looking to shorten their preseason, giving teams less time to really see what young players or players that are on the fringe of the rosters and stuff, what they can actually do in an actual game, in an actual football game. An actual professional football game, I should say. Not the college level, but an actual professional football game. So, for instance, instead of having the NFL Combine, you can have them play in the XFL Spring League or something like that, and you can actually see how they play in an actual game environment. Like, imagine the Combine is no longer a thing, and you just have the XFL. You have the whole XFL season play between guys who potentially want to make it into the NFL, and then you have a draft, an NFL draft at the end. Obviously, that wouldn't really work that well, because a lot of college players, especially the best college players, just got done playing for the national championship and stuff like that, and you're only giving them a month to kind of prepare for professional football. So there's a lot of issues there. And then you get drafted, and then you're going straight into the grind of the NFL. That kind of sucks. So maybe not that idea. That was just an idea I came off the top of my head. That was not from anything else. But yeah, and the new CBA will limit the amount of padded practices the players can have from training camp. So instead of 28 padded practices, it's down to 16. Now, of course, there's been spring leagues in the past, like NFL Europe, that have been beneficial to developing quarterbacks like Kurt Warner and Jake Delhomme. So it's an opportunity to develop players, kind of get them up to speed on how professional football. For instance, PJ Walker is looking like a fantastic NFL quarterback. Some NFL coaches have said that PJ Walker could be an NFL quarterback in the upcoming season, and we'll see how that turns out for him. But he is clearly the MVP candidate at this moment in time. And, I mean, we're only 3 weeks in, but still, it's a 10-week season, and he's played better than every other quarterback, especially since Cardell got 4 interceptions this past year. Another thing, it could be a coaching pipeline. It could be a coach development league. So there's a lot of controversy with the Rooney Rule in the NFL, whether it's being used correctly or incorrectly at the moment in time. The XFL has more minority head coaches and assistant coaches. And coaches can go to the XFL, make a name for themselves, and then they can potentially jump to the NFL. So it's so instead of going down to college and becoming a head coach in college and kind of building, if you don't want to deal with recruiting or you don't want to deal with college age, I mean, you're going to deal with college age kids anyways, but if you don't want to deal with recruiting and stuff like that, you can just go to the XFL, kind of be a development coach. There have been plenty of coaches in baseball that jump from the minor leagues to the major leagues. That's kind of actually how it works for most managers, unless you're David Ross or Carlos Beltran and you just get a job out of nowhere after retiring as a player. But it could be a good coaching pipeline. It could also be a referee pipeline. You could train officials. You can vet them. NFL officiating seems to be at an all-time low right now. Nobody trusts officials anymore. Everyone knows there's a problem. Even the NFL has said there's a problem with referees and how rules are implemented and stuff like that. The XFL could be a chance to see officials work at a pro level with athletes who are as close to NFL level speed as there is. You can use this to weed out the best of the best officials and have the best officials officiate the NFL. So that's a potential. You can get your new crop of referees from the XFL, get them up to speed, up to game speed, and then, of course, there's different rule sets. They would, of course, have to know both rules, but I feel like if you can handle the XFL rules, you can handle the NFL rules. Next is rules and technology. you could try out newer and simpler rules in the XFL, which the XFL's kind of already been doing that with the new kickoff that the XFL has implemented. A lot of people really like that. A lot of people are saying that that's probably where kickoffs are going to go. So that is a potential for rules. XFL has been praised for their rule changes, like I just said, for the kickoff, the double, the 2 forward passes or whatever hasn't really been shown yet, except for when Landry Jones kind of got his pass tipped back to him and then he threw another pass. It hasn't really been used at all, but the kickoff system, the sky judge, the ball spotting referee, all these things could help with the NFL. The rule changes, the transparency, all that stuff that the NFL does not have, but the XFL does. The NFL could adopt these. But even if the NFL doesn't adopt these rules, it is a great way to see the rules in action in a live environment. This can only help the NFL as it continues to improve every way possible. So there you go. Those are 4 ways that the NFL and the XFL could coexist and enjoy each other. Although I kind of prefer the XFL to be its own thing. But that's just me. But anyways, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Sports Podcast. If you liked it, of course, like, rate, and review us. And subscribe to the podcast. You can follow me at Strickland_Josh on Twitter. And you can follow the GSMC Sports Podcast Twitter, GSMC_sports. That's on Twitter. Of course, listen to all of our other GSMC podcasts on the GSMC Podcast Network. And I hope you all have a great Thursday. I'll talk to you Wednesday. Hopefully I don't have the sniffles anymore. And I am sorry about if you heard any coughing, because I did cough a lot in this recording for some reason. But thank you for listening, everybody, and I hope you have a great weekend.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.